This week on RSBANDB Update, Sanctum of Rebirth brings a renewal of PvM to RuneScape. This boss dungeon brings new mechanics, new wands, scriptures, divine rage, and Genesis. We discuss telegraphing, Tier 100, and the future of RuneScape PvM. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 996, recorded Thursday, July 25th, 2024. Dance fighting, RuneScape style. Hello, everybody, and welcome to RSBANDB Update, Sanctum of Rebirth week, a big week in RuneScape PvM. Probably one of the biggest PvM RuneScape weeks since Elder God Wars, maybe even before, depending on the scale of the launch. Pernasius, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You dabbled your feet in the Sanctum
four in a row
this week.
now. I did, yes. I had a lot of fun. Haven't completed it, but it's a fun boss, or set of bosses, but yes.
And if an introductory level PvMer can tell you that, then there you go. Also joining us for our Sanctum coverage this week, we have Lemon, who you guys might remember back from our discussion on the financials, Jagex financials for the year. She is the presently ranked 60th Iron Man character in game. Big congrats on that again, by the way.
Thank you. It's good to be back. We've got something more exciting more exciting for
more
most
exciting
people.
than numbers, right?
Yeah. Sanctum has been a whole lot of fun so far.
Right on. And you're not hardcore, you're just regular Iron, right?
No. I've died way too many times.
Okay, just checking.
I lost my status to a frost dragon back in 2014, so...
All right. Also joining us is Persia Dragon, who you might remember back from our Fresh Start coverage and Necromancy pre-release, who now has the distinct pleasure of owning 7 Maxscapes across 7 different accounts in RS. How did that come about?
Well, I started one ult, and then I ended up maxing it, and I was like, well, that was too easy. I'm just going to keep going. So pretty much is basically one account per party head in the game. So
Per
you can
party
imagine
hat?
what that... Correct.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine what the end goal is.
Okay, fair enough. You didn't mention the party hats earlier, but you've also been in Sanctum this week, and you mentioned the party hats. I think I know what you're after with all the drops in the dungeon. But of course, there's your panel for the week, folks. If you want to follow along, full show notes can be found at update.show. We do have a community Discord as well at update.show/Discord, and the friends chat can be found at BitsBytes. And of course, I do want to thank our experienced tier Patreon members for making RSBANDB Update possible. This week, that's Amos Reed, Andrew C., Drama Free, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Ricky A., Rippeth, Runestar, and The Naked Captain. You'll hear more about our Patreon offerings a little bit later in the podcast. But let's just dive into Sanctum here right now, because this is something the PvM community has been waiting for a long time. And, I think just based on what we're seeing, not only, from the folks who are doing normal mode, but from everybody else who's doing hard mode and has been around the PvM block before, they hit it out of the park. So let's just dive into the first boss here, which is named Vermyx the Broodmother. How did this go for you? First, let's start with you, Pernasius, because I do want to talk about resurrection sickness. Let's get to your quick.
Yeah, no, this one was pretty good. I mean, the first 2 bosses I was able to do without having to look up guides and videos. Probably. I didn't have a hard death at this one, so I think I used my 3 poison things where they just sort of slow you down and reset you type thing. Just took a little bit to work out the green arrows weren't so bright on the screen at first, okay. But once I put angled the camera a bit better, was able to see them. Pretty straightforward, good fun boss, a couple of fun mechanics. This is my style of boss. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it's very much in the vein of the original Elite Dungeons and whatnot. And one thing I will say with this, in terms of it, you mentioned the resurrection sickness on here is that those are 3 times that you effectively get stunned on normal mode,
Yes.
allowing you to continue on, which in many ways makes, I feel, these bosses very, very learner friendly.
Exactly.
To our folks who have been doing hard mode, do you guys agree, disagree with that? I don't know if you guys even went into normal mode.
You have to do one normal mode run to unlock hard mode, is my understanding.
Okay.
My only issue I had doing this boss the first time is I didn't realize the telegraphing was stand here.
For the green
it was
arrow,
obviously
for the green
like
things,
there's
right?
a thing that's going to be landing here, right? But I didn't realize it.
I had that same problem. I avoided it, and I was in there for 8 minutes, and I almost had a Zamorak situation. Of course, for people who are unaware of what that means, is that on Legacy of Zamorak release week, I did my first solo run at Zamorak. It took me 27 minutes to kill it because I was missing a certain mechanic, and I survived for that long, and I killed it, and I got mad props for it, and I think I'm still the 3rd slowest time in RS, so that's why I never went back. So that's what it means when I almost had a Zamorak moment there with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Overall,
overall,
at one stage the number 1, the lowest.
Yeah, it was once the lowest,
people
and then 2 people decided to go for a little bit more on that.
Mongrels.
But just looking at this in general, I feel like this is a story that needs to be told when it comes to PvM in the game, because what is the number one thing that people always said why they don't PvM? Well, it's death cost, and then there's obviously the fear of failure associated with it, that you're going to need to, get sent back out to Death's office, maybe, pay a small reclaim fee. But here you have 3 attempts in each of the bosses on normal mode to ensure that you're going to be successful for that.
And one other thing I just want to let people know who haven't done it: if you do die your 3 times, or you get hit those 3 resurrections and you die, you spawn straight outside the room again.
Yeah, that's because we got free deaths this week.
Ah,
yeah,
I
free
thought
deaths
that was
all
just
across
the
the
way it
game.
was done.
That's why.
Okay, so I forget what I was saying then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously next week it'll go back to how it was, but still, I think I still think it generally a move in the right direction. On that.
For sure.
One thing that has been like really delightful with spawning outside instead of going to death, like regardless of the actual death cost, it's like it's psychologically like so much better to just like pop outside the entrance instead of like popping up to death. It's like you're still in the same environment, like you're still in the sanctum. You just like, okay, yep. Pop back towards retreat, reload my preset, get my adrenaline, and then go back in. It's just so breezy. I love it.
Yep.
Like, are we at a situation yet where they could just do that for all bosses in game all the time? Like, would we be willing to pay an extra 1 to 2% on the GE fee for that?
You can pay whatever you want. I think it would be an interesting conversation to have. I'm inclined to say it probably would be for the best.
Because just imagine how experiences would have been different in Elder God Wars if we had Resurrection, and even if this, death system that we have right now here just continues. It is nice. It is nice.
Yeah.
Because it's a process. Even if you go to deaths, you still have to pay the money from your coffers, get everything back, away you go. Granted, they did make things better with overloads and familiars not disappearing and whatnot, but it's just very nice, and maybe that's a conversation to have. I don't know. Any notes about the mechanics here in Vermyx? Because for the first one is obviously the Moonstone Shard. You'll get a note that the Moonstone Shard is going to land where you were standing, and then it shows on the ground where it's going to land after you move. And this is the first example of telegraphing that we see. I don't necessarily know if there's anything to write home about with that. It's just nice to see where it's going to land on that one.
Yeah, no, very, very simple mechanics, easy for the casual person like me who is just as I said, I'm a two-finger typer. I watch the keyboard as I type and do that. So smashing different keys and all that is hard to do. This is a nice, simple. I can see it, click on it. I just have my fingers on my eat and my prayer switch. It's nice and simple to do. It's a good entry point boss.
Yeah. We also have the corrupted scarabs in Vermyx, and for anybody who is making their way to boss number 3, pay attention because the scarabs do return, and to kill these you just have to stun them. And I did find that interesting about how boss 1 introduces the healing scarab, and then boss 2 introduces the volatile that you have to kill or else you take huge damage by stunning. I thought that was a neat touch. Soul Bomb, you get that. You can just resonance or divert it. Vern, how are you dealing with the bomb?
No, the bomb was pretty easy. That was just step out of the way. The dive or surge was easy to do.
Oh, you can move away from the bomb. It doesn't track you. The soul bomb.
Don't think so. No, sorry, I'm thinking the one where the side head starts spitting out the big one. No, the soul bomb, I was able to just resonate that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
When in normal mode, is the soul bomb, do you get hit once by that, or is it twice?
Once.
Okay, because it's twice in hard mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to need to... I really like that how they have done that, right? It's a very simple thing to just hit a resonance or something to block that, or a disruption shield or something in normal mode. And then in hard mode, you're getting hit twice. So you can still resonance one of them, and that'll sort of be neutral, but you'll still get a hit. Or you can, what I do is I use deflect, and I Vip Pot just for safety. But I like that there's just like a little bit of step. It's the same mechanic, it's just a little bit extra in hard mode.
Would barricade block both, or...?
Sure, yeah.
It would, yeah.
Yeah.
It would, but I mean, it's a question if you want to spend that much adrenaline on it, right?
The adrenaline,
so.
yeah.
For me, yeah. I do that, hit one button, look down, and look at what I'm going to do next. So, yeah, that looks after those two. I'm happy.
Yeah, and it's very much dealer's choice on that then, too. So, that's neat. Then... Do you guys kill? And I've got a few hard mode kills on the first one. I got one hard mode kill on the second, and I haven't got my hard mode on the third one yet. But on Vermyx, what do you guys do with the with all the heads that appear? Do you just let them be, or do you death mark them and kill them, or
just use them to build a drain?
Okay, all right, fair enough. Hard mode differences on Vermyx. All 4 of the coil spawn as soon as the fight starts. There will be 3 moonstone shards that appear, and everything, like you guys were just saying, is faster, and the soul bomb hits twice instead of once. And I feel like what we're going to see here as we progress through this episode is that everything we're talking about in boss 1 is a stepping stone to 2, and then on to 3, and so on and so forth with that. So
yeah.
Moving on to boss 2, Kezalam the Wanderer, and oh my god, this one on hard mode took me a great amount of time to deal with, but on normal mode it wasn't too bad. First opinions on Kezalam. Let's go to you, Dragon.
It actually was a little trickier than the original one because of the moonstone things, but Death Skulls makes it a lot easier. So if you time it right, you just kind of ignore it. So kind of caught me off guard the first time.
Oh, so you're saying have Death Skulls up, and then when you get trapped, freedom yourself, and then Death Skulls will
clear
free
the whole thing. So you don't have to.
That's actually an interesting way of doing it. Because I should also mention that on normal mode, all of the moonstone shards are cleared whenever the blast lands on both the first boss and the second boss here. But on hard mode, those persist through the entire fight, potentially blocking the path that you're going to take with that. So, Moonstone Prison wasn't too bad for me. I have also used that to either heal up or build adrenaline with divert or resonance on that, just as an opportunity there. You can obviously just kill it and walk outside of it. What about the blast attacks on Kezalam here? Because I was looking at these, and there's a series of about 5 of them that it can do, but I haven't taken the time yet to remember what each of the words means in terms of the formation. I assume that'll just come with time. Or are you guys just standing at, one of the golden tiles and moving a little bit to kind of protect yourselves there?
Yeah, this is maybe a little bit weird, especially when we get to talking about the final boss in hard mode. But I actually find the area denial attacks in Kezalam's fight to actually be a little bit trickier than in Nakatra's. I think it's just there's something about the timing of it that is just like a little bit weird to me, and it just like doesn't click with my head. One of the things that in I guess one of the things, so there are 3 different types of area denial attacks, and one of them you will get different patterns depending on how close you're standing to the boss.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know how best to
well, to be fair, yeah, and to be fair, I'll also say that for this one and for all of them, actually, you don't want to be standing too close to them because they will attack with melee. So just stay at range. And yet another reason, why melee is an odd combat style for PvM, but that's a topic for another day, of course.
Yeah.
But okay. So you're saying that if you stand too close, or you stand a bit further away, you might get a different pattern.
Yeah, and the timing on them is different. So, if you're standing sort of like generally like necro range, right? I think it's 6 tiles or something.
6.
You'll get an outside ring, and then the interior one right around the boss will be empty. And if you go into that to avoid the attack, you'll get a very quick response in terms of he'll do a like a spin. And the tile right around him will be where that area attack is, and it's very tight timing to get in and then get out. Ideally, you'd want to dive in and then dive out, but
right.
Whereas on Nakatra you get your dive reset. You don't have that here.
Yeah,
so you'd have to ideally escape because if you surge because it forms a ring around the outside, you can basically surge from one area where you're being attacked into another area where you're being attacked.
Yeah. And see, that's and I'm going to just mention the other 2 mechanics here. You have the unstable scarabs. We mentioned the healing one in boss 2, but the unstable one, if you don't kill it by the time the bar above its head fills up, you will take massive damage. So stun and kill as you did, and they got a relatively small amount of life points on them. And then the other one is the moonstone obelisks that appear at the north and south ends of the arena. You have to take those down, and those are the mechanics of this fight. And what that tells me from this is that of the 3, I think I agree with you, Lemon, that this one is probably more movement intensive and more movement complex than Nakatra after you figured things out.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I think it mostly comes down to the large variety of the patterns and
exactly. Like I mentioned, 5
the
of them,
timing
right?
being different for different attacks.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So it's still the same attacks. It's just it will reverse the order if you're standing. I think it's within 3 tiles. It will do the the inside hit, and if you're standing outside of 3 tiles, it will do the outside hit. It still uses the same attack pattern. It's just it's really confusing to get started because you have to know how many tiles you're standing apart. So I couldn't figure out at first why that was the case.
Okay, fair enough. Pern, what'd you think of Kezalam from what you've done on it?
I got full deaths 3 times here before I got my kill. I mean, again, it's that movement and attacking and such, and the fact that sort of I only have one stun ability that I know of on on Necromancy, which is the Soul Strike, and
the other one is the Death Guard spec.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, it's just sort of doing that, realizing kill the unstable Scarab, and then you got to attack the Obelisk. It was a little bit more difficult to learn, but still, I mean, I learnt it myself as I said, I got 3 full deaths, and sort of kept going back in. What I do also like is you can just go back in where you were. I didn't have to do the first boss again. I could just go straight back in and kill this one. Again, really well done. It get a little bit more busy, and as Lemon and Dragon were both saying, the patterns were just, I couldn't work it out. I basically stood one tile away from the gold one and just stepped on the gold when it happened and such. But not a difficult boss, but not overly so.
Yeah. Okay. And I before we go into hard mode, I'll just use this as an opportunity to say, you mentioned between bosses and how you can just go back to that one. Obviously, that's the elite dungeon mechanic for it. And I think everybody's very thankful that we're not killing trash this week, and we're not taking 15 minutes per run to get to the end.
To get back, yeah, exactly. No, really, I really love how they've done this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like, you could obviously say, well, then it's not a traditional raid, but ask yourselves in what sense did RS3 ever actually have raids in the typical MMO sense and whatnot. So let's talk about hard mode on this one. Let's talk about hard mode on this one. So as I mentioned, the Moonstone shards won't be cleared, which that's fine. But oh my, the speed of the grid attacks on this, they drastically increase on hard mode. Yep. And it's like, holy crap, I'm doing a reaction timing test here, but I did get it at the end, and it really just comes down to, I think, standing in the right spot and being able to anticipate what actions are coming next. And the sense that I got in terms of doing this from my own perspective, starting from nothing, working up to the kill, was that the best way I could probably describe it is that after you know what it's doing, it feels like a dance. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, but
no, that's great. I love that.
Yeah,
dance fighting.
I mean, it's pretty accurate, because it's like, once you know the next step, it's the same way like you'd be anticipating what you're going to do next. And that's really how you can start to get the kills, is when you know what's coming next, you are already like, you have dive already queued up ready while you're doing abilities, then you can like use it accordingly. So
yeah,
dance fighting RuneScape style, I like
it. And I also think this is another thing I saw being brought up specifically by some people who typically had connection problems, is that they felt that this boss, specifically on hard mode, was also something that would degrade if your connection was bad. Did any of you guys experience that?
I haven't had any issues, but I can certainly see that.
Don't fight it on Australian Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that, Dragon?
On the first day, there was like a slight delay. I don't know if it was the world I was in, but it said that was the best ping world that I had. So it was pretty much like, the first day I had to deal with it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. And, that's what it comes down to with this one. It's just a matter of making sure that you move the one square every so often. And did you guys find that with this one, it was almost better to move manually only a few squares at a time rather than, using dive surge combos?
Generally, that's what I do, yeah. Part of the reason for that is, like I was saying earlier, like ideally it feels like for some of them you like specifically want to use escape, and just because escape has been not really very useful in many situations, I have it on a slightly awkward key combination, Shift 4.
Oh boy!
So I don't like to use I don't like to use escape. I feel like I would probably have a slightly easier time if I rebound that to a more convenient area.
Right, fair enough on that. And this goes to something else that's really emerged from this entire PvM venture this week, is that I wrote down a huge list of all my keybinds I used for this game as a result of this, because I was just looking at this and I was realizing I wanted to add more things on keybind, and I'm honestly at the point where I need to add another action bar to it. And
Yep.
I've got this just huge list of keybinds, and it really makes the argument that necromancy is an easy to use combat style hard to sell if you're gonna be using it at a medium to advanced level. But again, that's a topic for another show in terms of keybinds.
For the last boss, I mean, I'm comfortable with one action bar. Two, I can sort of get away with. I had to add a third one for the final boss, and that's where it's just, oh, hang on, what am I hitting? That's where it just got too convoluted for me.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think the other thing I'll say about this, and this is something you mentioned to me, Dragon, and it's not immediately apparent from this, but Kezalam is actually stunnable.
Yes.
So you can actually delay the attacks by stunning.
Yeah, that's how I ended up getting my first kill, because I was kind of confused at what was going to come next, and then once it started the stun, especially with necromancy, you can basically stack up 5 stuns plus the death guard spec, so you can really stall that out. And I did that just to kind of try and figure out, like, I wasn't sure what was next, but the yellow loading bar underneath them, I don't know if you noticed, that's how many auto attacks until their next one.
Yep.
So that's another good point to that telegraphing there. That's on the first boss too. It's on all of them. We should have mentioned that sooner, but it might not be clear what that is, but that's the auto attack counter.
Yeah, that's the way I was figuring out. Like, the stall is to kind of wait for that bar, and then basically with Necro, like I said, you could do 5 stuns in a row if you wanted to, and then it gives you more time to kind of process, like, oh, I'm low on health, I need to, like, I can switch to Soul Split, use 5 stuns. Like, if you're not somebody who's good at paraflicking, it gives you a huge opportunity to actually, like, slow the fight down, if you will, just because then you have more time to kind of, process or prepare yourself to what's coming next.
Yeah, and what I did for that on my Hardbone run is I actually used that as a way to ensure that I'd be able to get the full Living Death rotation out before, needing to be able to focus on movement and whatnot with that. So it's definitely, a strategy that we haven't seen for a while in bossing, because there's not a lot of bosses are stunnable. I think the biggest example of stunnable boss out there is probably Telos, right?
Telos and Magister, but that's
who
not
cares
really
about
relevant.
the Magister, right?
I mean, it was on release, but after that, it was pretty much dead on, once DPS got to be insane.
Yeah. So that's a fun tactic, to try for anybody who's having issues with this one as well. And this is also, again, just talking to various people throughout the week. One thing you also mentioned, Dragon, was adding a piece of tank armor to the kit for this one. That helped too, and with that, cycling in out, something like Reflect or Debilitate, just to lower the damage down and make it so that it's just something that is rather, you can cruise through rather than just having these huge bumps in the road, so to speak, with that. So
yeah, I think people just get so obsessed with, like, oh, I need maximum damage because that's the best way to play the game. But I actually find it consistently better to, like, always, especially before you understand a boss fully, to, like, Necro especially, because the Tier 95 only requires 4 pieces to get, like, the main set effects to be active.
Yeah,
it's really easy to use something like that and not lose out on damage because you're just taking less damage. So if you think about it, you actually are doing better because you don't have to worry about your health as much, and it gives you that life point bonus as well for Necro
around
gear
13k.
So
around 13k.
Yeah, it's 13,450 with the full Tier 95.
How
I'm
are you
using it right
getting?
now,
How are
that's
you getting
final.
to that? Because I was only at about, I think,
Desert Pantheon Aura. If you use that, it gives you 1,500, and then I use the 500 health relic because I don't use food, so I value
okay, that's
HP
fair.
over HP over
I should have put that one in. I was using the Death Ward one.
I don't find Death Ward valuable just because you have to be so low of HP, and the only time you would get there is on the last boss 7k once you have the mechanics right. And I find it's just, easier to add the extra HP than worry about the health being low.
Yeah, that's fair. And, we're talking primarily Necro. I assume everybody here was using Necro, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's too good with AoE to not use.
It is, but you can kill these bosses with the other combat styles if you want.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I have some clanmates who are using magic. I know for certain. I've seen some speed kills done, like really absurd speed kills done with range. But I think Necro is just so. It's so easy.
Right, like especially when you're in this situation where you're learning the boss and you want to focus on the boss's mechanics. If you can take those mechanics out of your combat style, I think that's a net benefit there for that.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I think that was a good learning experience, and maybe some of the listeners can take some of that away to see where they're at on this as we move through Kezalam and into Nakatra. Anything else on Kezalam before we move on?
Yeah, I guess this was also relevant with Vermyx, but you mentioned with hard mode the moon stone shards are persistent on the fight arena, which gives you an opportunity to use threads of fate to gather up a lot of soul stacks.
Oh, okay.
Which can be really nice.
And also healing too, if you build the soul stacks, and then if you wanted to let them go right away.
Yeah.
If that was not.
I always like little interactions like that, right? It's a hindrance to some degree, but also it opens up a different strategy.
Yeah,
so, and it's nice for building your souls back up for stuns and the whole 9 yards. So.
I think one of the things that I'm liking, in addition to everything that we've mentioned and everything that we will mention telegraphing wise on these bosses, is that these bosses very, very much lean into what makes necromancy great as a combat style. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you could have just, put these bosses out and, said people go at them with, ranged or magic and melee if you're a crazy person, and you would still be successful. But necromancy just, adds that little bit extra on top. And I think necromancy's finally bearing that fruit about a year later, after the fact on that. So. All right, let's move on to Nakatra right now. And this one is a very interesting boss fight for a lot of reasons, telegraphing and whatnot. But before we get into the mechanics of it too much, I just want to say, what's your guys' final accuracies hovering at here? Just out of curiosity on this boss.
89,
okay.
I think, is what it ends up being.
Yeah, I think 89-ish is what you, with max necromancy setup, is what you start the kill on. You can drop the Lord of Bones, and that will increase it over time. I have not, quite frankly, I've been intending to try to keep an eye on what it goes up to over time, but
It's at 700 mils, so now is not the time to buy it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Time to go back to Vorkath.
That was like 130 a month and a bit ago.
Oh,
yeah, that's why I never got it, is because I didn't think accuracy was ever going to be that usful, and now here I am with 89% damage potential.
And see, that's the exact same thing when it comes to Greater Sonic Wave, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I still don't know that Sonic Wave is going to be good enough.
No, it's not.
To beat out Conk,
but it's a little bit. It's a little bit of accuracy you can skim off the top at least here.
Sure, yeah. It's if you're stuck using it for some reason because you don't have a G-Conk codex, I guess.
But yeah, so I think it's great that they're leaning into accuracy. And, you know, for a long time, I think accuracy was just an ignored stat when it came to PvM. And I think leaning into it now isn't such a bad thing, given that the accuracy rework came to game with the March Combat update. So that's good. Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised they didn't lean into that more with this. I was, you know, from sort of the pre-release discussions, you know, they put out a post, you know, last week saying to have your, damage, whatever it's the actual stat is called, I don't remember, damage potential, increasing, equipment and abilities and whatnot. It's
Which
only
is
the
obvious,
last,
because
the last boss on hard mode where you actually have accuracy issues.
Yeah.
At least with, you know, with a tier 95 necromancy setup. I don't know what it is with, you know, tier 90.
Yeah,
so.
Pern, what do you have? You have the 90s?
I have the 90s, and I wouldn't have a clue on accuracy because I never look at that stuff. I just go and hit it. That's
yeah. So next time you go and just have a look at that
been an
box
issue, so I didn't even realize it would be on this.
Yeah.
So just have a look at that in the top right next time you're there.
Okay.
I think if you have tier 95 gear and then you pop what is it, maniacal or reckless or any of those auras, you actually get very close to 100%, which means like theoretically magic and range are much better overall, especially if you have the tier 100. I'm sure it's 100%. So but I've actually been using the Nihil too, because that gives you
that's another thing I wanted to mention,
rather than like a Reaver. I actually got all my PRs using Nihil instead of Reaver or Hellhound or Kezalam Demon.
Because Nihil
I use
effectively. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, if you need the extra survivability, absolutely use a yak. But you know, in the way accuracy works right now, Nihil just turns into more damage on the boss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. I should probably consider. Getting the pouches is a little bit obnoxious for me, though.
Right.
Yeah, for iron, I wouldn't do it, but I had pre-bought over 100 of each just because I figured at some point they might be a useful item. I was thinking that they were going to get updated to work like the Kezalam Demon, where basically, you know, it would give you a team accuracy buff in that style, but that hasn't come out yet. So the theory behind it was that it was going to be, you know, much more useful, but I think it's still pretty good. 6% accuracy is huge for damage potential because it's basically that raw 6% damage
6%
increase.
Damage,
then
Exactly. Well, before we get into mechanics, while we're on the topic of accuracy on this boss, do you bring the Reavers for the 5% crit chance of taking 5% accuracy with this, or is this a case for the Zorgoths or the Necrosis ring that I'm forgetting the name of from the Rex Matriarch?
I did, until I realized that that didn't make sense with the accuracy issues.
Yeah, I had it on for the first run because I had just copied a preset from I think it was Raziel, and then I just switched out the amulet, but I hadn't thought, accuracy is probably a big deal. So yeah, my first like full runs were a little bit hindered without. Yeah, Occultist is probably the best, I would say, but
Occultist or Zorgoth? I went Zorgoth because that's what I had, and I think Souls makes sense that having a chance to pick them up for the stuns of the scarabs isn't a bad idea. Why do you like Occultists?
12 stacks. It just basically gives you more to like work with, and you can burn them at 6. So essentially, it gives you more like that you can hold. And for the souls themselves specifically, like they're a very specific type of use where it's either you want to use all of them with like something like Split Soul to get the maximum amount of damage, or with Soul Split on to get the maximum amount of healing, or in this case, they're effective for the stuns on the scarab. So it's like they're a specific use, whereas the other ones are just like straight here, I get free damage for pressing the button early. So in your rotation, it just like over a long period of time, especially, it will give you more damage overall. But I just use Ring of Death anyway. Like I find it to be too valuable. Where you can just
you use the Ring of Death.
Yeah.
Interesting.
out if I mess up, and then I just restart the kill. So I haven't really like taken a real death and since the first day. So I just
that's
reset
actually
because
that's not a bad idea, especially given the damage bonuses on Ring of Death.
So I use Powder of Penance as the main thing, and I basically can't soul split the whole time. So if you actually take a death, you lose it. But if you Ring of Death and then you pray at the Altar of War, it saves that. So I save it from that rather than like taking an actual death, which I would advise to use after the week's up as well. Because like once the week is up, you're gonna take the actual death.
Yep.
So, or if you haven't unlocked the incense thing for extended overloads or something like that, it would also be valuable in that situation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good note for people who want to keep practicing hard mode after the free week is up. All right, mechanic wise, obliterate. This is one of the mechanics that appears on normal mode. It hits once, that deals 14,000 plus damage, and the best way to, of course, fix yourself from this is protect magic and devotion. What are you guys doing on hard mode for this? I assume it's something like you mentioned for the bombs, where it's like a reflect and a vit pod, right?
Yeah, the timing of it works out so that you can't just always use devotion.
Yep.
Devotion will still be on cooldown by the time the next cycle comes around. So for me, the first one I use devotion, and then the second time around it's deflect, and I also like to vit pot and disruption shield and resonance.
Yeah, and then that blocks it entirely for that on hard mode there. So
yeah, if you're very good with your timing, you can drop your prayer. You could just tank 2, drop your prayer, and then resonance that. But
I don't like the way that sounds.
You got to have stronger nerves than I got to do that.
Yeah,
it's actually quite difficult. I died like 3 times trying to do it, and I was confused. But it's because it hits every 1 tick. Yeah. So you basically have to like have perfect timing, especially because I usually just based on my rotation, it lines up on the second one. So that's why I was dying. So I was getting really pissed that first day because I couldn't figure out what the issue was.
Yeah.
Okay. The Soulfire attacks, and this is something I think that's truly wonderful with this boss fight in terms of telegraphing. So you have what appears on the floor, right? Like it shows you where it's going to be, as it did in all of the other previous bosses. But if you also look up on the west and east walls of the arena, it will show you in terms of what's going to, in effect, be lighting up. And what you can imagine is just transpose those symbols that are on the west and east walls of the fight down onto the arena, and then wherever those have the green glowy bits, or would have the green glowy bits on the floor, that's where the AoE attacks are going to land. So you can use that to determine kind of where you need to stand. So if you are watching that, you can, in effect, move or dive to wherever you need to be to keep yourself safe from that. And this was another thing that was also pointed out with this, is that if you look at the golden tiles around Nakatra, specifically the ones that are in a square, not a rectangle, typically if you stand in or around on those golden tiles in the square, you only need to usually move 1 grid spot left, right, up, down, or diagonally from that to avoid the attacks if you position yourself appropriately based on what has been telegraphed from the wall. Now, granted, for me, even on normal mode, I'm still at the process where I'm watching the boss, watching the mechanics, that I'm not always doing that, but I imagine over time this will feed into that same sort of dance mantra that we talked about with boss number 2, in being able to nicely, in effect, figure out what's happening with this. So, again, truly hitting it out of the park on that, I think.
Yeah, it's really lovely that everything is telegraphed. Some of it is a little... I think you gotta. It takes a little bit of extra thought to realize how that's being telegraphed. Yeah. And it's a little bit awkward sometimes to look at that, especially on hard mode.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's there. Everything is there if you can absorb the information.
Right. And I'm trying to think if we have anything remotely like this in game right now, and I don't think we do. Just in terms of, telling you what's coming next, from the markers on the floor, from the markers on the wall, to the little adrenaline bar type thing, counting autos above each of the boss's heads. I don't think we have anything like that in game right now, do we? For this.
I don't.
So.
Certainly not to
really.
this degree.
No.
Not with so much information.
No.
Like, I didn't even realize your auto attacks, that there was a bar for that. I was counting auto attacks, so...
Right, and see, that's the thing. If you are doing a boss to a high level of proficiency, like a Vorkath or a Raziel, for example, you're going to be in the mode of counting auto attacks to know what's coming next, and it's nice having this aid to help you out with that. But next up
But you gotta get used to it.
Yeah, get used to it. Next up is the scarabs, and you get the healing ones that you saw in boss 2, and you get the volatile ones that you saw in boss 3. And this was my problem in hard mode, that I had to abandon the hard mode attempt because I didn't get my video footage of the normal mode kills on day 1, so I had to abandon where I was on the hard mode attempt last night. But it was this point here where it was, moving through all the various grid space on the ground and then dealing with the obliterate attack. And then, you got to be ready to stun these 2 scarabs and kill them right away, or else you're going to have a bad day. It was that sort of overload that was my main inhibiting factor as to where I was at on hard mode here. But
yeah, this is the timing of everything.
Yeah,
the scarabs overlap a little bit with the other attacks, so it's just one extra
boxes
thing
and
too.
Whatnot and all that too.
Yeah.
But
just as a note, my go-to way to deal with the scarabs is to soul strike the volatile one, because that only has 3,000 life points, and then to use the Death Guard spec on the healing one, because that has 15k.
Okay.
And that generally works out pretty well. Sometimes I accidentally Death Guard spec the volatile one instead, and then that's a panic moment because
because you want that one to die pretty quickly given what it can do.
Yeah, like worst case scenario, if you don't deal with the healing one, it heals Nakatra for 30k. So it's like, there are worse things that could
that's a couple
happen.
fingers of death, right?
Yeah, and it's 15k on the scarab, so like it's only really at most extra 15k life points that you're dealing with. So it's actually not that bad if you don't deal with it.
But you definitely want to deal with the volatile one.
Yeah,
yeah. Though I guess you could, if you really ran into it, you could just debilitate and reflect, but you probably want to keep your reflect for the obliterate attack, don't you?
Yep, exactly.
I'd imagine Disruption Shield can also work into this too, but that's only one attack, so it does get kind of hairy in that regard. Then you have the two Nephthys that are summoned at 320,000 life points, and with these you just go to each corner of the map, east-west, and kill them. Am I missing anything about that, or is it really that simple associated with them? Just kill them before they heal up, right?
Yeah, hard mode, the life point threshold is higher. I don't remember what it is off the top of my
90k.
head. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
The main issue with the dogs is you're also dealing with the area
the floor
denial
AoE
attacks.
attacks,
Yeah. So they're not too bad. I don't know. I don't remember if you have this on normal mode, but on hard mode, you have there's another area denial attack just for that portion of the fight.
Yes.
That is sort of like an asterisk.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
you do have that.
Yes, you
So,
do.
you've got as with everything through this fight, you got to keep watching your feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving on from that, we have the trip into the Shadow Sands, and this was something that was interesting, starting off, because you get pulled in there. I put Protect from Leon in there. You guys do that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay.
And when I realised, I go, why am I getting killed so quick? And then realise, because the gorillas are so far away, you don't realise that they're
and see,
hitting you
that's
with
another
melee.
thing I heard. People thought you had to attack the gorillas, but all you have to do is
Yep, that's
release
what I was
the
doing
soul,
at first.
and then kill the two small things, and then click on the remnants that are there. But wait, there's more. There's more. You have to take note of the figures that are up on the back wall. And this was, I think this was you, Lemon, that told me this on day one as to how to deal with what was perceived to be an insta-kill. After that, it's, just look at the figures that are on the back wall. And following from that, when you go back out, there will be 3 pictographs on the floor, and you stand on the one that wasn't in the Shadow Sands, and then you're safe from that attack.
Yeah. Once you know that that's there and that you're supposed to look at it, it's pretty straightforward. But I went a long time without noticing that was there.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, it might look like I have this in the demo video of the normal kill on the video version of the show here. And one thing that I do see with this is you have to be standing smack dab on the center of the pictograph, or else you will take that damaging hit. So. But
you should be able to stand on any of the 9 tiles. You shouldn't be right in the middle.
Okay, I wonder what happened there then. Well, we'll see. And then finally we have the Sanctum Shockwave being patched on Monday to prevent the old stand under the boss care pack trick from working. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Mod Ryan, for that. I think
that'd be something that they check for. When they do,
you can't get all the little things like that.
I know, but that's a pretty standard one that everyone does first up on a boss. Just stand underneath it. The first week, everyone does it, and then they patch it. Every boss.
Yeah. But for this one, the one that the way that I've seen, the simplest way in my view is you stand on the gold tile, and then when the first ring explodes, you just move 1 square out and then 1 square back in, and that protects you. You can also do, a whole dive and surge around there too if you want, but you don't necessarily need to do that. What have you two been doing on hard mode for that one? Yeah,
just a gold tile walk.
Yeah, because the timing on hard mode is a lot tighter. You can still walk it. I had some malfunctions with that early on, so I abandoned that strategy, and I just sort of there on the cardinal directions. There's towards the outside of the arena, there's like a series of red tiles. I just stand there, and then I escape back towards the center of the arena.
So in the center of the red tiles, or just on any?
Yeah. Okay. And then I just escape back basically through the rings once they start exploding.
Okay. Well, yeah, that might actually be simpler in the grand scheme of things then, as you're not that close.
I find it way more difficult. That's why I don't do it.
All right.
Yeah, I certainly had malfunctions doing it as well, so. Fair
enough. And of course, I think the biggest differences on hard mode for this one, we talked about Obliterate hitting 3 times. The boss has the soul corruption stacks associated with it, and it's just faster. So
yeah, I guess one thing to note, I have not dealt with this personally, but apparently if you get above a certain threshold of soul stacks, instead of having 3 of the glyphs on the floor when you come out of the sand, the desert area, there will be 5 of them.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
which it's sort of weird, right? Because you're basically
being penalized for taking
longer. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right then.
I also had a bug on the first day where I don't know if it was just the laptop I was using, but basically when you came out, all the tiles would just show all gray. They wouldn't show any icon. So it's just a 3x3 square of all gray tiles. So I had to close my client and reopen it to fix that. But it was really annoying because like I wouldn't have been able to see it until I get to that last boss in the last fight. But luckily, it saves your progress. So it's not like I lost the whole thing. It was just really unfortunate that I got through that. And then I actually guessed right the first time, but I had to 2-cycle, and then I guessed wrong the second time and died. So it was kind of annoying that, I had a 33% chance to guess right.
Well, then. Well, we're going to... I want to ask you guys what you... We've been talking about a lot about what's good here, but I do want to talk about... Go ahead.
So I was to say, everyone will notice that Shane hasn't asked me about Nakatra because he knows I'm useless and haven't killed it.
I mean, you could have chimed in. I don't know if you have anything.
No, just the obliterate and then trying to kill those monks. I haven't actually got out of the Shadow Realm yet.
Okay. What would you say is holding you up on that? Is it just noticing the pictograph, or?
No, just skill. Just trying to kill. I mean, when I first went down there, I was trying to kill the monkeys, and I was still praying mage because they were so far away. I'm thinking, why? And then I'll look at my character and realize it's melee hits. Okay, so I pray melee when I go down there. Just killing the other souls in time before I get that insta death. But since I've realized with the monkeys that you don't need to kill them and only the dogs and watch out, I've only been there twice. So hopefully next time I'll get through that and get to that last bit and die, 27 times trying to get to the right tile.
Yeah. Your best bet for that is going to be to Threads of Fate and to do a volley.
Yeah, that'll just take them both down off the bat. If you have an extra tick in before, cast Bloat on one of them, then do the Thread of Fate volley, because when something with Bloat dies, it spreads it.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to get my son to come and do it.
Oh, he plays.
He doesn't play, but he plays other games. So I'll just say he'll play with this a bit, and I'll give you $20 and get it done.
Oh goodness!
Oh, that's wonderful. Speaking of money, if anybody wants to support the podcast, we do have something called Patreon at patreon.com/RSBANDB. Many wonderful people supporting the podcast this week, including Alvaro L., Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arvid Zell, Brayton K., Chilbura, Daniel W., Dominic R., Drama Free, Duramax, Gila Fleur, Jacob G., Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Lemon Lodge, Luminos, Mongrath, Pernasius, Ricky A., Rippeth, Robbie L., Runestar, Samuel F.L., Scott DS, Shirt Pants, Targaryen, The Naked Captain, The Dabbing Goat, Tim, Truth Ray, Ukulele Steve, Zant, and Zazakon. Big, huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. And if you're wondering what all this is about, patreon.com/RSBNB. Right now, they're voting for the next monthly bit. If you are a Patreon member, go vote, patreon.com/RSBNB. But what this is, each and every month we do a bonus show, and the Patreon members choose it. This month, the choices are Evolution, or rather Evolving Combat, who did it better, Skill Expression for skilling. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but there's a reason behind it, and Temporary Game Modes. Right now, the one that's winning is Skill Expression for skilling, and just looking into seeing if maybe a bit more expression can be added to skilling, because typically people say skilling isn't hard, but maybe we can look at certain things like skill bosses, big game hunter, that sort of thing, and see, well, is there skill expression in skilling, and what does that all mean? So if that sounds interesting to you, patreon.com/RSBNB, and there we have a collection of 70 plus other monthly bits as well, covering things like Legacy Combat, our first look at EOC, holiday events, and of course the world famous tier lists as well. All of that and more for as little as $1 a month. We also have a VIP tier where for $3 a month you can get a rank on Discord, which includes a chat channel and a mention on the podcast at the start of the month, plus high quality stereo versions of the show. For $5 a month, we have our insider tier where you get a shout out on the podcast each and every week and gain exclusive access to the clips that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. And with that, you also get the RSBANB update Christmas cards. So patreon.com/RSBANB. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Any final thoughts on the three bosses of the Sanctum of Rebirth in terms of, what would you guys say if you guys had to pick one thing? Let's just go around the table here. You would change or add into it. Let's start with you, Lemon.
Things I would change or add in. You had to start with me, didn't you? The only thing that has been particularly annoying for me is the click boxes on the Nephthys are a little bit weird sometimes. I always somehow manage to end up clicking through them. But
because I move.
Yeah, but this has just been so well done,
Yeah, it really has.
I'm just anything I'm saying is just sort of
it's just little things, right? This is an archaeology level of polish almost.
Yeah, it's 99 out of 100.
If I was gonna nitpick, add voice cues.
Yeah,
to everything.
That was my one, and apparently that is coming. But that would have been my one as voice cues because, the screen is so busy. I've had to add a third action bar, which is just nigh on impossible for me. And just because things like I misobliterate, if I hear it, I can go, okay, bang, and I know as soon as I hear that, I can sort of hit my resonance or hit my devotion and such. It's just that trying to watch the screen, watch my keyboard, watch my action bar, watch my buff bar. I only have two eyes. Not, I know I wear glasses, but they're not actually an extra set of eyes.
Right.
So.
Another thing I'd like to see on Nakatra in particular is to add some coloring to the pictographs for
that would be nice
for
too.
the Shadow Sans. Because I feel like the pictographs are kind of blurry as they are at the back wall there, and also kind of blurry on the ground. So maybe just add make them colored so they're each a different color, and refer to the colorblind wheel to make sure that they're colorblind safe and too.
Maybe a god mode for myself, just for the Panasius account where I just don't take any damage while I fight them and learn. No.
How about you, Dragon? What would you say to add or tweak on the encounters?
Well, I think I had mentioned to you the one thing about the first boss is that the click box for the single tile I think is just unnecessary. I don't know why it has to be a single tile. Why can't it be like a 3x3?
You're referring to where you have to catch the soul?
Where you catch the soul, it's very unforgiving, and I find that with some of the speed of RuneScape response time being that 0.6, it should be maybe a more forgiving area that you have to make it into. Because if it's 3x3, I think it would be just better that way. And then same thing as far as clickbox on the final phase of in the sands where you get the Salwa or whatever killed, and then when they spawn, they're kind of like this very small click box. I will think that I have clicked something, and I will be standing there like wondering why I'm not teleporting up. So that was the main two things that were just the only thing I found to be rather, I wouldn't say annoying, but just unfortunate that that's how the click boxes are
and I think
small.
We're dealing with a lot of legacy kind of things like that, just with how the game interacts for that. And I'll kind of second that with the click boxing stuff. I've found it difficult to target the scarabs in Nakatra as well. I found I almost had better luck if I just right click attacked on them rather than just left clicking for when they get too close to Nakatra.
I guess I should obligatory shout out to Target Cycling. I don't use you, but you exist, and I probably ought to use you.
Right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, honestly, with that.
It's just one more button. I need to find somewhere to put it. To my keyboard,
sorry.
I only have so many buttons.
It's a standard MMO feature, but
can I ask
it just
what
feels weird.
Target cycling is?
Yes. Okay. So if you go into your controls in game, there's a control called Target Cycle that you can bind, and what that'll do is if you bind it to say tab, it will just whenever you press that, it will just move between all the different targets on the field, starting conally from whatever direction your player is facing.
Okay.
So it's a way of moving what your character is targeting without actually clicking on something different.
And where do you find that?
It's in the control settings somewhere. Like where you set your keyboards.
Sorry, controls. Okay.
Yeah. Dragon, do you use target cycling?
Yes. And there's actually two, and I forget which one is better because of the way it targets.
Target cycling backwards and target cycling forwards. Okay.
I think you want to do backwards, but I can check for you when I'm done with the skill.
Okay, interesting. I never actually knew that was a thing. And what does that actually do?
If you press it, it targets basically the nearest monster to you in that direction.
Ooh.
So forwards or backwards, I believe, is like clockwise.
Yeah.
That would be
or
very good.
counterclockwise.
That would actually be very good when I do the wilderness events because there's so many people down there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I did not know about that.
Yeah, and I feel like the most...
I've learned something new. It's not a bad day.
Like, I feel like the most logical button for that is probably tab, given the way it works in other games. But
I actually have it on my mouse. And
really?
The scroll wheel.
Oh, that's...
So I just...
That makes sense.
I tap the scroll wheel rather than having it be scrolling.
Yeah, and, everybody else has scroll for zoom, so...
I play on max zoom out at all times. I can't stand the zooming in and out.
Wild. Okie dokie. Well, you know what else people have been clamoring at with this since it is boss week, and that's the rewards that come from the Sanctum here. Let's start with the tier 95 wands. We talked a bit about these when they were in beta, and they went with the bleed set effect on this, interestingly enough, which I think shocked a lot of people when we saw it. But I kind of warmed up to this one from where we were at on the beta. Where were you guys at with these? Start with you, Pern.
Love them. Not weapons I'll be sort of getting, obviously, straight away. I as I said, I'm not a high-level PvMer, but the second tiers are always good for me. But, yeah, they look great. Having, T95 magic dual wield is always going to be a good thing, just for the speed of the attacks.
Yeah.
But, yeah. All
right. How about you, Lemon?
It certainly wasn't my favorite of the effects on the beta. Even if we disregard the fact that bleeds are broken in group settings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that they have said that they are going to fix bleeds, and I do believe them, but like
that was my main reason for wanting one of the wild magic ones, to be honest, was that whole discussion about bleeds.
Yeah, I did really like the feel of the wild magic. I think it was the first one, the one that had a fixed one rather than a random.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, the bleed effects it's cool, it's great, but I think overall it is more interesting. But it wasn't as plug and play for me, and it wasn't. And bleeds are broken.
Yeah, because it's just corruption, blast, and combust right now.
Yeah.
So.
And I think is a spec on the.
It is.
The weapon,
it is. I want to go through the set effect first. Dots generate essence corruption lasting 30 seconds. At 1, 25, and 50 stacks, you gain additional effects, which were detailed before on the wiki and in the post. And set 2 is just a 30% increase to your damage over time effects on there. So that's that. Dragon, what do you think of the T95 ones?
I actually like the set effect, but I know it's not that popular. And then I kind of have a controversial take on bleeds because everybody says they're broken, but I don't find them to be broken. I just think people shouldn't have the expectation that everybody should be using the same combat style at a specific boss. So I think it's more of an expectation thing, because I don't think that's really a thing in other MMOs. They typically have a wider variety of like damage dealers or like style users. So
yeah, but you can stack different bleeds, with others in different games, and to diminishing returns on that, obviously. And it's just I don't even know if it's that big of an issue, because you look at I think the two biggest group settings where this becomes a problem are raids and AOD probably, and if you're with friends using the same style at somewhere like Zamorak or whatnot. In that case, like you said, you're gonna say you're bringing range, you're bringing necromancy, what have you, with that. So, and just to refresh you on what Essence Corruption does, so you gain a stack every hit splat from damage over time abilities while using the Roar of Awakening or Ode to Deceit weapons, and at 1 stack, dots have a 30% chance to become empowered, dealing all their damage immediately and refreshing their cooldown. At 25 stacks, magic damage deals 100% of stacks plus 100% of magic stat as bonus damage, and at 50 stacks, basic abilities generate an additional 3% adrenaline over 3.6 seconds. That's kind of big there for that one at 50 stacks. So maybe these are kind of unique, despite just being what Lemon and I wanted here at the end of the day, as what was talked about on the beta. The special attack now, Soulfire, wildly release a dark flame to ignite your target, causing them to burn, which deals 130 to 160% magic damage on every hit, and 170 to 200% magic damage per hit every 1.8 seconds for 7 hits. It's another dot, and also generates Conflagrate, which makes your next combust within 15 seconds, deal 40% increased damage. I feel like we got a candidate here for a good spec. I know everybody always likes their Fasoa and whatnot, but this feels like a good spec.
Yeah, it's I've seen people already drop it in an EOF because they have dupes, but yeah,
fair enough, as they do.
My understanding is that people are on the high end are looking to basically swap between the Fasoa during your Sunshine rotation, and then outside of Sunshine rotation, go back to the Tier 95 dual wield set, because bleeds aren't affected by Sunshine.
Yeah, so that makes sense when you think about it, and it also kind of just, I think, puts the two different kinds of magic that we have on showcase for that, as in the crit lean of the Fractured Staff in its Sunshine rotation, plus now what we're now doing with bleeds here, which is interesting, because I always thought of bleeds kind of like a melee kind of thing in RS. So, but we'll see where these land, but I feel like they're going to be something that people want. And I do also want to highlight that these come from normal mode. I know that was a bit controversial on day one for some people. They wanted the Tier 95 weapons to be limited to hard mode. But honestly, looking at this and just peeling back the layers of the onion on it, look at what's happened to combat over the last year in that regard. And it's been just a general trend of making everything else, I think, more accessible. You know, you look at how, for example, accessible Tier 95 Necro weapons are after that, by putting these on normal mode where normal mode sits in the grand scheme of things on, you know, the PvM difficulty scale, I don't think it's too far of a stretch. And when you're looking at, you know, the other thing, the big tier 100 boost that we'll talk about in a bit, that, you know, is your kind of apples to oranges comparison. So
yeah. No, I think because you've got that Shard of Genesis on the hard mode, I would have been sort of very annoyed if they left the two other weapons on hard mode as well.
Yeah, there wouldn't be enough there.
Because then you
in
just
normal-
have the
for
Scripture
normal.
and Divine Rage, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had actually thought before the update was coming out that what they were going to do is add 2 sets of upgrades, where one was for your tier 92s to go to tier 95, and that was dropped from normal mode. And then the new weapon itself was not going to be dropped from normal mode. So I was a little bit surprised that they would just went with like a regular tier 95 rather than upgrading.
No, that explains your opinion on the matter then, with that in terms of what you thought coming in.
Well, to me, it would make more sense because then it wouldn't devalue the other items, because the tier 95s with the set effect would be much, much more expensive. But then, similar to how they had said that coming out with the tier 100 2H in the future when they do the 110 smithing, that it's going to have the accuracy check, so it's going to be really good for something like this. That would essentially do the same thing for magic, but it would like make appraisals not. I don't want to say they're useless now, but
see, that's the thing I was saying with necromancy over the last year. You've seen over the time that, you know, tier 90 becomes normalized and 95 becomes accessible with the Raziel weapons, and, you know, with those being, I don't know what their current grand exchange price was, but when I was doing it, you know, they were like 500, 600 mil each on that. And then if you could bring all the other tier 95s down to that ballpark, that's a level of standardization across the board on that I think makes sense, because that's one of the things back when we were talking a lot about Elder God Wars. One of the things we said is, well, you know, people are saying, where's our bad luck mitigation for these drops? And the answer was, well, people will grind these bosses, you know, for 18 hours a day at the very extreme end of things. If you do that, you make it so that they're just printing those, and you got to have the money in the commons instead. And what you wind up with then is a case where these rare weapons were in effect only limited to a handful of players, and you know, no other game does that at this point in time. And I think we've really just seen a opening of high-end accessibility in combat at the end of the day. And there are going to be people out there in the elitist community who aren't going to like that, but you won't find any of those.
I had a question for you, Shane. Is there a reason that normal mode couldn't have better GP per hour as a base loot, and then hard mode have the big drops? So essentially, I would have had it where normal mode gets you, you know, 3 times as much base loot, and then like just the scriptures and the pages and stuff like that. But then also a tier 92 upgrade, and then when you have the hard mode would have given you the new tier 95 plus the upgrade, and then you wouldn't actually be able to even get the scripture from hard mode. So that way it's like an exclusive normal mode drop, as well as like just better base GP, because it's not going to be as valuable. That way you actually kind of balance the two. It's like having 2 different bosses, but I understand people wouldn't like that either. But
it's the comparison of how long that took you to explain it, and it's more complicated, I think, is the reason they didn't do that.
And also, you basically, it doesn't matter. It's that wow factor of drops. I mean, I'm not going to go and sit there if I'm only going to get a scripture.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's entirely a valid perspective, Pernasius, on that. And I also
want that wow factor. If I can, you know, I'm going to keep trying, because there is a chance I might be able to get a raw or an ode. But you know,
I think
if you're going to tell me scripture is my is my drop, then it's like, well, it's a book that's going to devalue pretty quickly looking at the specs on it. It's
also saying that I was also saying that it would be an item that upgrades your tier 92 to tier 95, so it gives you the equal value.
Yeah,
but obviously no set effect, so that's like
and
the trade-off.
Exactly, and then people aren't going to worry about really buying those.
I also think that this boss is trying new things for the sake of trying new things, both in terms of the telegraphing, like we saw in the mechanics, but also, you remember, I don't know if you guys remember that Mod Jack live stream that he did a while back last year, where he said, if we're gonna make key drops at bosses more common, then the common loot table is going to be lower in value. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here with this boss. Granted, I don't think the common loot table is bad or as bad as something like Raksha out there as an example, but I think this is an example to see what they could do if they put something like those tier 95 wands on a normal drop table, because Lemon, you got some already, and you said people have already got the dupes.
Yep, yeah, for sure. We're in a weird time, right? Because of course the first couple days all you see is the good luck.
Yeah.
Right now I'm starting to get to the point where I see clanmates who are like 40 odd kills in dry on hard mode, and that's not dry on the wands, that's dry of any drop. Yeah, so
yeah. I got a divine rage on day one. We'll talk about that one in a minute. Let's move on to the scripture right now, the scripture of Amascut. We were kind of going back and forth on this. I've been talking to some people with this, and we're trying to find the use case for this, because if you want AoE, you're going to use the Wen book, right? If you are using the big heavy-hitting necro attacks, you're probably going to use Jazz book in maybe 60% of the cases, and that other 40%, you're probably going to go full, right?
Yeah, or a grimoire.
Yeah, or a grim. So, I don't know. So, it's a 6.6% proc chance like it is on the other books. What happens is that activates the Devourer's Corruption effect, where for 10.2 seconds, base damage is increased by 10%, which leaves a soul residue around the target for 6 seconds. And targets within the soul residue receive Devourer's Contagion, dealing 30% ability damage every 1.2 seconds for 6 seconds. Regardless of combat style used, the damage from the Devourer's Contagion will always be magic damage. So, the difference, obviously, between this and full is that full is 20% on the final damage multiplier. This is 10% on the base, so it's not as big there. So it's going to, I think, come down to, how big the damage that this soul residue is doing, depending on what your ability damage is. At least that's my sense reading into it, right? That's when you're going to use that for this.
Yeah, it's a little like in between, right? It has some AoE-ish type things, but it's not really AoE, but it's also not really single because it's not as good. So, and I mean, it's weird.
Like at GE 54 mil, probably higher for the book now. I'm not just going to buy one of these to test it on the dummy for kicks and giggles at this point. I don't have that kind of discretionary funds. So
I could drop you one. I have a dupe.
I mean, maybe if you want to, but yeah, it would just be for testing. So I'm not gonna force you to do that.
I mean, I sort of put this more in the range of sort of that sort of high mid-level player. You're not quite maxed yet. You haven't got the funds to buy a Jazz or.
But the Jazz book is way cheaper.
Is it?
Yeah,
I thought
the pages are 1.2 mil each right now, so it costs like 1.6 mil an hour, Shane. That's why it's like not as viable as it used to be.
Oh, okay.
But I also think the book is being underrated because I got all my PRs using it. So
the Amascut book.
I think it's actually stronger than people give it credit for. It's just they just are
so you're
set
seeing
on these other books.
Am I right though that you're seeing the bulk of the damage from the Devourer's Contagion?
I'm not sure where it actually came from, but one thing I did notice is the boss is temporarily immune. A lot of times my Joss proc would go off while it's immune and just zero.
Ooh.
So it's like there's a chance that like your damage just gets nulled. So usually I find that anything that doesn't allow damage to get nulled is going to work a lot better overall. So I think that's why I was having more success with it. Just based on the timing, it could be purely coincidence that like I just happened to be in that part of the fight where,
right?
Based on damage, I got nulled. But I got all my PRs were with that, and I think it was a lot better than people seem to think it is. So
And Lemon, you said you were using full for your fight primarily?
Yeah, I've been using full, and I did, I don't know, like 30, 45 minutes, something like that with the Scripture of Amascut today, and I was having noticeably slower kills, but you know, I don't have like a particularly large sample I'm going off of, so you know, I could have just had could have been a skill issue. Let's put it that way.
What are the pages going for? I haven't got any of them. The GE price says 459, but I suspect it's different. And I know
I haven't tried to buy or sell, but I would I would insta buy them if I could. I'm in the middle of a kill right now, so when I'm done, I'll buy them because, like I said, I actually wanted to test it out more because, like I said, I think it's more not viable necessarily, but like more consistent. I think is where people don't get the value out of it. Same way, like I'm using Ring of Death. Like people always forget that, like if you die and don't get the kill, then you didn't get the kill. So it's better to have like even a chance. I've actually saved a couple kills because I messed up on the end. So stuff like that is, I think, often overlooked as viable or usable.
I just bought
full gives you that extra, like you take more damage. So
I just bought a page 1.1 mil.
Pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll put a bookmark in that, and we'll probably have to come back to that one once we. Oh, I see.
I just put it back into sell, and it's sold for $7.35 straight away.
Nice.
Well, there you go.
So yeah.
Buy high, sell low.
I thought I'd just test. Hey, I got plenty of GP at the moment, so.
All right.
Losing 200k is not that bad.
No, you could be losing other things.
Exactly.
With that, but it's interesting how you guys had different opinions on this book, given its effect on here. And you're both using necromancy.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think what else might be different. You guys probably are both not using the Reaver's Ring as well, so you're probably hovering around the same accuracy mark.
Yeah, I don't know.
I said I use Nihil as well, so.
Oh yeah, true. You've got high.
That's going to be higher accuracy. Like right now, it says 93. So I'm mid kill, so that's why it's like that's the max that you get with the amulet stacking for the Essence of Finality. So.
All right. Well, let's move on to Divine Rage right now. This is a weird one, isn't it?
I thought it was a hybrid prayer at first.
No, it's just a standard prayer for the standard prayer book that requires 85 strength, magic, ranged, and necromancy in prayer to use, and it boosts your damage of those styles by a flat 5%. And that's where that one lands. Now, you might think that that's, okay, why would I ever do that? Well, there is a potential time where you might want to do this, but I don't necessarily know if it's something you would want to do. So you take the 5% from Divine Rage, you combine that with the Amulet of Zealots from Dungeoneering, the Daemonheim store, and then your appropriate strength prayer from the standard book, so your Necromancy one or your Ultimate Strength or what have you. And what this results in at the end is a 21% damage boost for the chosen style, which is way bigger than what the tier 99 prayer or tier 99 curse rather will give you damage wise. But you're giving up soul split soul, and the stat drains from the curses. And in my view, that probably still makes the ancient curses better at the end of the day. It probably does. So I got one of these Divine Rages on day one. It sold for 42 mil, which surprised me, given what they do. I think somewhere that I see this being used potentially, and I underscore the potential with a big caveat behind it, is that this might be something to be associated with Slayer, to use at a point where you're not going to need to be relying on Soul Split to heal, and you're going to be able to just get by with the passive heals from your Excalibur and your defensive abilities, for example. So I see this as maybe something you would do if you were just maxing out your damage boost when you were doing Slayer, perhaps. Or, obviously, if you haven't unlocked the curses, but if you have 85 prayer by that point, that's probably something you're heading towards doing, so maybe that's not the case. I don't know. That's my take on this. It provides an immaculate damage boost that's bigger than anything the curses can offer, but you give up a ton to get that damage boost. Where are you guys at with this?
Well, having as many alts as I do, I have 7 total accounts and only 4 of them have Soul Split. So it'd be something that I would unlock just because that way I could actually do AFKing with higher damage potential. And Zealots is way cheaper than Amulet of Souls is still like a 70 mil investment per account. So stuff like that is always a sneaky way to, get some better damage.
Right. And see, that's the thing, is that if you do have the Amulet of Souls, you do have the Reaper Necklace, you do have the EOF, then you're also, of course, missing out on that. So you got to factor that into the calculus. But if you don't have those, then maybe this is a reason for sticking on that standard prayer book for a bit longer. But the question is, even if you don't have, if you had, Soul Split and whatnot unlocked, is Soul Split that powerful that it's just that appealing, especially with Necromancy Split Soul, that you would just gravitate to curses naturally, I wonder?
Yeah, my initial thought looking at this was, oh, well, with all the healing from the ghost with Necromancy, you don't need Soul Split as much. But then you got Split Soul. So that sort of just throws that right out the window. I think we will see some niche uses for this. I wonder if we'll see some use for group bosses, maybe for more of a DPS style build. I don't know.
Like in a place where accuracy doesn't matter that much, and you're already at the cap, and you can just focus on damage.
Yeah, it's maybe, but for both necromancy and range, Split Soul is a lot of damage, and I just don't know. I was thinking, is there an angle where you might on a fresh iron you might get this prior to 95 prayer, theoretically, but then you also need to have 95 in all of the combat skills. So if you're
85.
Rushing or 85, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So if you're rushing, necromancy,
which is the one you're going to rush in this day and age, let's be honest.
Yeah. On a new account, you're just going to do necromancy from the beginning. That's fine. But you need to level up your range and your magic and your melee stats. It's what? So it's I don't see it from an iron perspective. I don't see it really being that much of a bridge, because that bridge is so it's a very particular set of entry requirements.
Yeah, I think honestly what it falls down to after you mention the ghost again is anywhere you can passively heal with the ghost and your Excalibur, like Slayer, that's where you can just, cap out on damage. That's probably going to be the case. And, Divine Rage can also be used with Piety as well, for that matter, too. So,
yeah. Maybe we'll see some... I had a thought, and now it's just gone.
That's fair. That happens.
Happens more when you get older, too.
Oh, sorry. Maybe we'll see. We so often, we're looking at what makes sense in a particular best case optimal scenario of how things get used, and I'm sure there is a type of player out there who maybe they have access to Split Soul, but they're not going to use that, and maybe that's the type of player who might say, I've got the healing from my ghost, I don't actually need Soul Split.
Or here's a wild idea: it's an opening salvo in a case to make the standard prayer book relevant again, which is something that that old school has really clung to, because, you know, they tried to introduce a set of prayers last year, the ruinous powers, that never took off. They tried to introduce god alignments again, various prayers associated around the main gods, which didn't take off, in the sense, at least on the old school side, is that the standard prayer book is king. And, you know, ask yourself, amongst the RS3 players, how many people that you know who are endgame use the standard prayer book, right? Like, the last time I used it was when I was leveling necromancy, because I didn't have that necromancy prayer unlocked yet. So
Right.
But
Or maybe it's for people who really, really, really hate quests and haven't unlocked it.
or that too. That too. That too. And, you know,
There's
always
somebody out there.
like, we're a bunch of questers here at Update. I
Yep.
don't know about you, Lemon and Dragon, but most of
I'm
the
never
update...
doing Clock Tower. I'll never get a quest cape. It's fine.
Oh, really? You don't have your quest cape?
No,
They
I don't.
stole-
It's like why would I do Clock Tower? Like, there's no reason to do Clock Tower in 2024.
Okay, I guess
I have
you're
other
fine.
quests left undone, but, like, you know, they're just yes, I know it's best in slot for clues, but, like, you know, I'm fine. It's live for the meme. Live for the meme.
All right. Well, in that case, then let's move on to the next one, which is the Shard of Genesis Essence that we were talking about. And I think the big surprise for everybody with this one is that you only need one of them to upgrade your entire tier 95 set, your main hand and offhand, to tier 100. So that means your Dark Shard of Lang, the Lang Swords, the Omni Guard, and Lantern, and as well as these tier 95 wands that we just got this week. You only need one of these Genesis shards to be able to upgrade to tier 100 with that. So
Yeah, that's
And-
really nice.
and it's not just an accuracy buff, too. It's not just accuracy to tier 100. It's accuracy and damage to tier 100, which is big. Big. So, in many ways, this is the simplest drop out of this drop table.
Yeah, it just makes number go bigger.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't know what they're at. Dragon, have you got any so far?
Any of the essence?
Yeah, any
I
of the
got
essence.
2 of them. I
What
got
are they
one
selling
on
for?
the second day, which was 4 bill, but the most recent one I got was 2.8, and it seems like they're about 2.5 bill now. So they've gone down quite substantially. compared
Okay,
to
so
first
give
day
it
price.
another few weeks, and they'll be back to what the tier 95s used to be around. You know, just max cash stack, give or take, maybe a bit more.
I think most likely they'll hang around 2 bill just based on the previous best in slot, because they essentially are, even though it's not a new item, it's the upgrade itself is about the same.
And, you know, it's
But-
good because it lets what they were saying, it lets the things like the Fesoa, the EZK, and the Bow of the Last Guardian and whatnot to become those legendary weapons, right? As in, you would get something like one of those, but you don't really want to, you know, pass them by once they become obsolete. So it kind of keeps them in circulation for just a bit longer on that. So I think that's good.
And given that they upgrade both, I'll probably, when they do drop to the 2 bill, grab a set for my necromancy weapons,
Yeah.
because I don't have to buy 2; I only have to buy 1.
Yeah, and you know, there's also a reference to be made that maybe you'll use these, you'll use this shard and the associated weapons to create life from lifelessness. Anyone?
Nope.
Are you? Is this a Star Trek thing?
Yes.
I was going to
Yes.
say it'll be a Star
Yep.
Trek thing.
Yeah.
Of
Okay.
course.
Okay, you guys got to brush up on your references. Star Trek 2, Genesis device.
Yeah. But listen, it's two is not one that I what is it? Is it 4, the one with the whales? That's the one I
Yes.
always watch.
Okay.
The one with the whales.
Yeah, they traveled back to 1986 to grab a pair of humpback whales because humpback whales had gone extinct and they needed them
Yep.
to communicate with an alien probe, the whale probe.
Yep.
Sounds like Jagex would be interested in that with other MTX updates.
Oh goodness.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's good.
I hope those Gmons are watching this episode, Shane.
Oh God. Okay. Yikes. All right. Continuing on, we also have the Devourer Aura, which is a cosmetic that you unlock after 100 hard mode kills. I know there are people out there who are definitely hunting for that, just for the cosmetic effect of it. So that's neat. And fun fact on this, it was actually confirmed that just like in Zamorak, in the Zamorak Elite Dungeon, there's an effect that looks similar to that will show on your character before you open the chest to kind of tell you if you've got a rare drop.
Yeah, it's a little faint right now. I have looked for the aura, not seen it, and then opened the chest and had a wand in there. So it's on their list of things to punch up, is make that a little more prominent.
Yeah.
It's a pleasant surprise, eh?
We also have Neffy, the boss pet. I know somebody in our community got the boss pet, I think, on kill number 2.
Yep.
Of course.
So there's that. And as Pernasius has devoutly added to the to the doc here, lore books. We will be doing a full lore special on this boss dungeon. But
although I must say, I've just looked up the lore books and they've changed them from uncommon to common drops. So
good.
That is a bit better. So,
that's
but
good.
still, for my mind, a lore book, it's not something to sell, you make money out of. It's on the quest cape, and you shouldn't be forcing people into high level bossing on quests. Especially with luck mitigators and such. I mean, you can go. I mean, yeah, common is 1 in 16 or whatever, but you can have bad luck and have to sort of fight 30, 40, 50 bosses before you get that lore drop book.
Yeah.
It's like saying, well, before we do every boss, you must do a 3.5-4 hour master quest, so you can get into bossing.
No, that would never fly.
Well, that'll never fly. But why do, like, my master quest is gone? My master quest cape is gone because now I have to sit there and fight this boss and try and and not only once, I have to get through it several times unless I get lucky to get that lore book.
Yeah,
that's
like
my issue.
I'm of two minds that maybe in the absence of story mode, maybe they should just make the lore guaranteed on the first kill.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind that.
Would we lose anything if it was?
I don't think so.
Exactly. I'm happy having you should fight the boss to get that lore book drop. I'm happy with that. I don't mind that at all. I think it should be a guaranteed first kill drop is my point on that.
Yeah, that's fair. And while we're on the topic of lore briefly this week, did you also notice that there's continuing the trend of putting lore pages in spaces that you need to telegraph them from?
Yep.
Yes. And luckily they did that on the very first one as you walk in before you even fight a boss. So, that's right. So I could actually teleport out, get my runes and then do it. So I was able to get most of the pages.
Yeah. Also, as expected, there's another source for Moonstone here. I know there was a talk last week on the show about that, about how rare Moonstone is given the task set. So that's another source for it. But it seems relatively still uncommon to be holding its value. But here's one that wasn't really advertised that much, and this one is perhaps for you, Pern. The Cursed Amascut Sand. It's dropped by any of the Raptor specialty monsters that were added way back in 2018. So that's the Wyverns, the Ripper Demons, the Camel Warriors, and the Mammoths. But now this dungeon also drops that to upgrade your Ushabtis.
Yeah, I mean, I've completed my book, and I never really had that much trouble. Yeah, I mean, some of them took a little bit of time, but I didn't think they were overly hard to fill. So, but 18 mil, it's a nice little drop if you get it.
Alrighty, folks. Any final thoughts here on the Sanctum before we start wrapping up?
Sanctum good.
Sanctum
Yeah,
good.
just a shout out to the mods involved. You've done a really good job on this one, and that's coming from someone who, is not a big bosser and is struggling on the last one, but still having a lot of fun doing it.
It really harkens back to traditional PvM in my view. This one does.
Just a little loud. I don't want to be running 3 action bars.
Hey. I've upgraded to 4. I'm soon upgrading to 5.
God.
Yeah.
Just
I
whack 'em all on there.
I struggle with 2, and it's just like, come on, now you're making me add a 3rd.
Yeah, I've had 5 for a long time, so I don't even remember what it was like. So, but as far as I want to say one more thing about the bosses. I would say these types of bosses that are more mechanically intensive seem to actually be like better response from the community than like something like Vorkath, which is just straight chip damage.
Chaos.
So I think it's more of like a better sentiment to have like visual clarity with also like the in-depth mechanics. It seems to go over a lot better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that 100% on that. But also just some quick changes as well in terms of what was in the patch notes this week. Not too much because it was a key release week, but they did put in a patch so that auto hit marks are removed so that all damage now has appropriate background splats to represent its type at a glance, similar to how necromancy does. That was a long time coming. I'm glad they did that. I don't know if anybody else noticed that in game this week, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, no strong feelings.
Yeah. And they made the change to Sonic Wave, Concentrated Blast, and Magma Tempest so that they no longer require a specific magic weapon to use, which we talked about on the beta. But
yeah, that's great.
Indeed it is.
Good update, that one. Yep.
All right, let's start with some achievements then. This week we have Darth Wolfus, who got 120 agility on the 24th. Atreus got 99 prayer on the 22nd, and Demi Heights got 99 dungeoneering on the 21st.
Also on the 21st, we have Lord Zorik with 99 fishing, and Lord Zorik again hit 99 agility on July 19th. And Twisted Soul hit 99 necromancy also on July 19th. Congratulations all.
Nicely done, everyone. Nicely done. Alrighty, Lemon. Pick of the week. I think you had a book for us last time. You have another book for us today. What's this one about?
Ooh, so this is Before We Go Live. This is a memoir written by Stephen Flavel. Goes on by the name Jorbs Online. He's known for strategy gaming, primarily Slay the Spire. So he wrote a memoir last year about, like, what's it like in this terrible industry of online entertainment. It's a really wonderful, heartfelt read. I ugly cried far too many times during the couple days I spent reading this, and it's just so it is important to me because I every night when I go to bed I put on one of his Slay the Spire VODs and I watch it as I go to sleep. But it's a really kind of shocking in some ways. I mean, like, we all know some of the terrible things about like what the streaming industry, such that it is the terrible wages. The terrible wages don't even begin to describe how terrible they are when somebody is starting out. But
like you can attack it like the cover here says, in that you start out, you make $3 an hour, then 4, then 8, then after a year and a half you make minimum wage, and a couple years after that you're signed to a professional team for $1,000 an hour.
Yeah. And
it can go that way, or it can go to the point where it just gradually chips up over time, and then it will you build up to that 100K mark on YouTube or whatever, and over time basically it can go the way it was highlighted here on the cover, or it can just, chip up ever so slightly slow with that. And throughout all of that, you're of course managing your community, you're managing your business behind it, you're managing your personalities, because everybody online has a personality. They definitely do. We try to keep that to a minimum here at the podcast, but in the wider content creation universe, that's definitely something you have. So it's interesting that there's a memoir on this. I never thought that there would be on it. What do you think your biggest insight on it was?
Oh my god. There are a couple of passages that stand out to me because like they are narrating like a specific event that happened on a specific day, and like I recognize that as an event that had happened, and then getting like the larger context, like several years later. Like he talks so much about like COVID and what that was like, and the stress that put on, like his life and his relationships, and how things sort of deteriorated during that time. And like, it's heart-wrenching. One of the, as much as this book is about Stephen, it's also about Hannah, who is his I guess a manager is her title, but like she's his business partner in so many ways. And it's like it's a look into what it's like being a woman in that space as well, and all of the terrible shit that comes with it. Hannah is such a delightful person, and she's somebody who, like now I count among my friends. I've gotten to know her.
Oh, okay.
But it just sits that.
I mean, the sense that you're getting is conveying, the impact that it has and what it unveiled.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love the stuff that makes me like struggle to find words.
Good pick of the week, nonetheless. Then, but
yeah.
That pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. So thank you both for being here. Anything that you'd like to add in before we depart here, Dragon and Lemon?
Make sure you join the Patreon and vote for the monthly bit. We want to talk about skilling, and by we I mean I want to talk about skilling.
That one's probably going to happen. It's winning with like 70% of the vote at this point. So
yeah. We'll still join the Patreon anyway.
Yeah, get access to that when it arrives on day one, of course. But thank you both for being here, and of course Pernasius too. Thanks for filling in for Tanis again.
No problems at all.
If you guys want the podcast delivered automatically to you, best way to do that is to subscribe. We're on all the big listeners out there: Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and more. Just visit update.show/subscribe. And of course, we're also on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. Give us a like and subscribe there. Greatly helps the channel out. But with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Happy Skype and all.
Bye.